My name's Clay, and I'm alcoholic.
Hey, Clay.
Like Kurt said, some things happened, but I was taught very early on by a lot of people, you hold your commitments, and I'm standing by that. So, I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, 1974. I have a brother and a sister, both older, and I would say a pretty normal home life. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. Nothing's normal. But I had a lot of isms from the very beginning. I have both my grandfathers are alcoholics. My dad was an alcoholic. And from a very early age, I did not want to be like my dad. So much so that when I was asked as a little kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said I wanted to be a mom. Because all dads did is sit around and read the paper and drink beer. There wasn't a lot of abuse. There was, some stern lessons for sure. But my dad moved out when I was in 4th grade. My parents split up. I did not want for anything. I was provided pretty much everything I needed. But I started from a very early age developing those isms. I can remember my mom giving me a haircut money to go get my hair cut, and I cut my hair myself and went to the arcade. Now, that's alcoholism right there from a very early age. And I was not a very good barber, evidently, because she knew right away when I came home I looked like Little Caesar's pizza guy. I had my first drink in 7th grade with some buddies, and some people have it, some people don't. I immediately knew this is for me. I had a lot of friends, but I always kind of felt a little bit out of place. A little bit of social anxiety. I still have it right now. But I always had that, and that lubricant of alcohol from a very early age was how I coped with being in those situations. I tried a lot of things in 7th grade. My mom's here. I'm not going to tell you everything I tried. But I tried a lot of things. But from that point on, it was alcohol for me. All through junior high, I would drink on the weekends, getting it from parents, stealing it out of other people's garages. However I could get it, but I never seemed to not have it. We would walk around the neighborhood and drink beer and smoke cigarettes. That for 3 years. And I got into high school and started driving, and I was drinking even more. There's a few times, like when I was on the golf team, we had a field trip to the zoo, and this is, I'm 16 years old, and I'm packing vodka, pouring it in lemon quenches on a school field trip at the zoo, coming back to play golf. I should have known. I didn't know. It took me a long time. But as I look back on it, I had those mannerisms of, I drank a little bit more than the people I was around. It affected me a little bit differently. But that's about the point where it started really becoming my identity of who I was. And I thought it was cool to be associated as a guy that went out and drank. I thought that made me cool, and it took off my anxiety, and that's who I was. So from about that point, it became my identity. I was Clay. You could always go have a good time and drink with him. There was warning signs back then. I had to call my mom one time from the Fort Mill jail because I got caught drinking on the South Carolina side of the Carowinds parking lot. If I would have been about where Rob's sitting, I would have gotten a ticket, but I was on the South Carolina side. They took me to jail. I called, my brother answered, he was older, and I said, man, you got to help me out. You come get me out. He's like, I don't have any money. Here's Mom. She picked me up and made it very clear that she would not do that again. This was my one-time pass. You would think I'd start to learn a lesson, but I didn't. I got pulled over in my driveway by the police for drinking in a car driving. Didn't have any repercussions from that. And that is part of my story, and it gets worse. But a lot of these things that I'm doing, I didn't have repercussions from them. I didn't have the pain that I eventually got to, so I kept doing it. My senior year of high school, my mom took a job, and she worked in Wilson, North Carolina. I lived in a nice house in a good part of Charlotte, a lot of times by myself. That's when drinking started happening more. School nights. She would swear that they said on the announcement when she was there and when she wasn't. And sometimes when she was there, we would sit out in my front yard. She didn't know we were drinking. We were drinking. And watch people drive by to see if I was having a party. And here again, I was a little bit more drinking than the people I was hanging out with. But I always found somebody to hang out with because, like my dad being the alcoholic, at this point he's still drinking. But if I wasn't drinking alone, it wasn't a problem. That's how I thought. We do those little things in our heads. We play tricks on ourselves. If I'm find somebody to drink with, it's not a bad thing. If somebody else is doing it, it's okay. So I should have known it was going to be a problem when the yearbook, my senior year, came out, and they give like what people are going to be doing in 20 years, and it says I was going to be a part owner in Anheuser-Busch. So that is, very early and quickly that has become my identity. Who knows how I did it? I went to school. I got into Appalachian State. Early admissions. I turned it off. I went to Appalachian State, thinking, okay, well, I've been living by myself. I can do this. Well, I started drinking more there all the time. Not going to classes. Same thing. In college, I was so wrapped up in drinking with people. I didn't have a girlfriend all through college. I didn't even want it. I wanted the beer and I wanted the fun and the alcohol. Everything else, I didn't want class. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't know. I was still a kid. Like I said, I didn't know what I wanted. So I went to 3 years at Appalachian State before they pretty much said you can come back for summer school or you can't come back. I was a good golfer. I played a lot growing up. So I got a job at a golf course and decided I was going to be a pro golfer. And so I passed that and became a teaching pro at a golf course. The drinking didn't stop. And some of the bad habits from drinking started creeping in there. I can remember, I would work all day and then I'd go out at night. I'd be terrible the next morning when I had to be there at 6:30. But sometimes I would say, I want to look good for everybody. And I'd grab a shirt and I'd be like, I'm going to pay this later. Well, sometimes you forget about those things. And so I didn't get fired from the place, but I started to feel that. And one of the things I did, and moving forward, you'll see it, I ran. So I got a different job. And I job hopped a little bit, and I always landed on my feet. There was no repercussions. I went from a good job there to a good job as an assistant general manager of a nice bed and breakfast because of who I knew and who my family knew, doing the same things. Tearing up some relationships in that process. Not really many. I was always pretty good and pretty nice and didn't take a lot at this point from people. But I was, slowly going downhill. So in 2003, I was feeling everything kind of coming crashing. I always had that impending doom feeling. You're doing the wrong thing and you feel just like this doom is going to come on me. It's coming. I know it is. And so my dad had gone to the colony about 15 years before that. He was sober. I saw what it did for him. I went and sought his help. He helped me get to the colony. And I went through it, but I went through it I quickly found out for the wrong reasons. I went through because I wanted people off my back. I didn't go through for me. So at that point, I had a girlfriend who was my future ex-wife. I got out I think it was a Friday, maybe a Thursday, but that night I was at a bar drinking. I was great there. You put yourself in that little bubble when it's not around you, easy peasy. You get out and you don't have the support, you go right back to the same thing, right where you came from, you're going to do the same things. And I did. So at this point I was working for a construction company and I was doing fine, but I found myself, supposed to be working till 5. Well, I'd start getting off at 4 to go to the bar. And then 3, hey, I'm going to go drop off some plans. I got to run a couple errands for the work, but I'm going to the bar and drinking. And I was always a bar guy. I wasn't really a stay-at-home and drink, because I think some of those things are, if I'm not drinking alone, and after I'd gone to the colony, one of the things at the colony I didn't know, or I shouldn't say that. One thing of treatment you hear, and I used it against it. You don't look for similarities. I was looking for differences. If you can put a bottle down, if you can drink and start and put a bottle down, you're not an alcoholic. So I would, like any good alcoholic, I drink until it's like this much left. I didn't finish the bottle. I'd put it down and have a little bit for the morning, but I tricked myself. My mind, my alcoholic mind, tricked myself in these little things of thinking I wasn't in trouble. My ex-wife is a drinker, and that was a pretty toxic relationship. We were together through this. I worked for the construction company. We split up in 2009 for about a year. We started talking again. A month later, she gets pregnant. So we got married. This is one of those times where I was like, I'm not going to be like my dad. My daughter's going to have me in her life. I do not want to be my dad. Not being able to tell, I was my dad. I was an alcoholic. I was doing the wrong things. So we got married. I switched jobs. Stress and, drinking, not liking my job because the boss was mean, but I'm sneaking out and going to drink. Not drinking at work at this point, but manipulating it so I can get to my alcoholism, so I can get to what pleasing me. I'm self-pleasing. So like anything else, I land on my feet all through my life, no consequences. I get a job at as an office manager for a really good, really great job at a high-end real estate company. And I did good for a little bit. I was still drinking. Let me back up. Another time, I think having a daughter, I'm going to change, right? I'm going to change. This is one of those things I can start changing. I was at the hospital, and not 4 hours after my daughter's born, I'm telling my wife I got to go get some stuff from home, and I stop by the bar and take a couple shots on the way there, and then get back. How sick is that? I mean, that is just sick, because I was crawling out of my own skin being there. She had a long labor, and I was there for too long. I mean, shaking and knowing that I was just terrible. So I got this job, and I was doing great. One time, I used the company credit card, and my boss said, "That's fine. You use it for whatever you want." That's the wrong thing to tell me, any good alcoholic. So I used it, and I would leave there early, same pattern. Leave work early, go to the bar, drink. And I'm such a good, smart alcoholic, I'll put the first 4 on the company credit card, and I'll put 1 on mine, joint account. So when I get home, you can look at the banks, you can look at the card, here's the receipt, I only had 1 to my wife. Yeah, sick. She was a drinker too, which was, if you have two drinkers and you have problems going in, and then you add a kid, it's hard. It was really hard. We fought a lot. There was some abuse there, not on my part, not on her part. There was more mental abuse. But she, it got to be so bad. My daughter's about 5, right? Well, let me back up. Before I left her, so I was about 2015. I'm still working for the same lady at the same company, and it's that impending doom. I know she's going to find out I've been using the credit card. I got to get out of here. So I had a friend that was in construction, one of my best friends ever, and I knew he was growing his company and feeling those walls start to cave in. Hey, let me move to this. And I moved. The lady that I worked for cried when I left. She loved me. Well, about 2 months later, I get a call from that lady that loved me after she had looked at her credit card receipts. And thank God I had a good friend that we could come up with some money, or I would have been in jail. So she called and said, "You have this till right now to pay me back, or I'm going to go to the police." And, no consequences yet because I found a way out of it. I'll pay him back. I was going to work for him. He's like, "Don't worry about it. We'll just take some out of your check every week." So I went to work for him. Shortly after me and my wife started really having problems, and my daughter started coming out and saying, "Why are y'all yelling and fighting so much?" So I decided to leave. And what am I doing that I didn't want to do? I'm turning into my father. Here I am leaving my daughter, job hopping, driving drunk. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I woke up in my bed going, "Oh my God, how'd I get home?" And my truck's right out in front. And flash forward to that, I blamed God back then for a lot of things. It was His fault. Why didn't I have what my friends had? Why didn't I have the money when I was growing up, which I had plenty of, that these had? Why didn't I have the opportunities? And I had every opportunity. I blamed God for these things, not knowing He was keeping me alive during this time. Hopefully He had better plans for me in the future, but I couldn't see that. So I worked for my friend. Still the same thing. I'm drinking all the time. I move out. After about 2 years. I get evicted because I couldn't pay my bills, but I've got a great paying job and I'm spending money at the bar all the time. I didn't know how to manage. All I cared about is where I'm going to get my drinks. So I'm losing these opportunities. So I left him. Again, no real. I went from a friend's house to a friend's house. Some nights I'd sleep in my truck at this point. I landed on my feet with a good job training people in a restaurant. I have no restaurant business, but and I was good with people and good talking to people, and this guy knew me, and they were starting a few restaurants, and I had that job. Well, this restaurant had a bar. Not great for me. That lasted about a year. Not that I ever got caught drinking at work, but I did drink at work some. And that was kind of the first time I started drinking earlier and earlier in the day. And I couldn't, even though I learned this is, 10 years prior, I shouldn't be, the right way to do things. And I knew at this point I was in trouble and I was an alcoholic. But that alcohol had a hold of me. I wasn't ready. I guess I hadn't, I didn't have the consequences. So I kept running until I was going to have some consequences. So then I do a little job hopping. Like any good alcoholic, I took a girl hostage. I moved to Annapolis, Maryland. I met her on one week. I went up there to visit the next weekend, and the next weekend I was moving up there with her and her 2 kids. No job, just running from my problems and not ready to stop drinking, but I was running. So I was up there, got a pretty good job back in that kind of same restaurant role. But because of her drinking and my drinking, that didn't really work out. So I'm back in Charlotte. At this point, my mom has let me come back. She knows that I'm not drinking. And I took a little bit of time off when I first moved back, but I was full of myself. I was white knuckling it. I wasn't working any program of action. I just wasn't drinking. I wasn't sober by any means. I still had that alcoholic mind. I lived with her for a little bit, and then I got a place and I got a job at a restaurant. Drinking a lot. And after about 4 months there, I got pretty much couldn't pay my rent. So then I'm living in my truck at this point. I'm staying on people's couches here and there, but I don't have anywhere to call home. Here I am. I like to think I'm pretty intelligent and had every opportunity, certainly had every opportunity in the world given to me, and I've drank it all down. So as I later found God working in his ways, I got another job with a startup company, really good. I thought it was technology and doing some things. Well, after about 2 months, they wanted to move me to Atlanta, and I went down to Atlanta for a little bit, but I couldn't do it. Being away from, I'd like to say my daughter, I think being away from my friends in the bar and the people that I knew would have as much to do with it as anything else when I look back at it. Then I would have told you straight to your face, no, I need to be back in Charlotte. I can't do this because of my daughter. But that was only part of it, looking back on it. I couldn't be away from my watering holes, my friends and my salvation. And I've always fought depression a little bit. I used to say, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I know which one came first, the drinking now. Back then I didn't. So, it's getting pretty rock bottom here. And I guess, I wasn't, my family was noticing. I wasn't around as much. I wasn't invited around as much. So last Christmas, I got told not to come to Christmas with my family. And I don't blame them at all. It's what I needed. It was kind of that, oh my God, if my family, my sweet mom that I know loves me, I got my brother and sister love me. She's got her husband. I've got a lot of people that love me, but they don't want me around. I got a damn problem. So I spent Christmas Eve in a bar with a couple people, and went to a hotel and spent Christmas in a hotel. And I went to my mom's first on Christmas Eve with my daughter, and then made it to the bar. And at that point, I was really in bad shape. I didn't have a place to live. I'm living in my truck. I'm crashing at a friend's house, drinking, and feeling terrible about myself. Here's where the suicidal thoughts started coming in. I got to the point where I did not want to live anymore. If this is all that life was, and I turned into my dad, what good am I? I do not want to live. I can't be a good father. I can't stop drinking. At this point, I'm at the bar at 11 o'clock in the morning, drinking liquor. January, I took some pills. It was a half-hearted point. attempt. I don't think I did want to, but I didn't. I was probably chicken. Cry for help. I told my friend. He got me into detox. And while there, I kind of opened my eyes to a little bit of what I've been doing. Gave me a chance to get sober, get a clear head. I hadn't had a clear head since high school. I mean, I think since my senior year of high school until this point, besides that month that I was with my mom, I might have had 2 days in a row sober. Maybe 2. Probably not. So I was in bad shape, and there was no more running to be done. I knew that impending doom was there. I was going to die, or I was going to have to face this thing finally. And so I got out, and I was going to look for a place in Charlotte. And here's where, to me, the spirituality, God started showing up for me. So we're calling places, and I said, man, maybe I'll call down to where my dad went. And I call up, and the guy answers the phone, or a girl answers the phone. She said, he's not in. I'll have him call you. He called me back, and he said, man, I was just talking about you and your dad today. Now, what's the chances of that? He said, I'm going to have somebody call you back. Guy called me back and says, we had a guy that decided not to show up today. Can you be here at 10 o'clock the next morning? And I was there. But that was God working. And I could start to see it finally. And I went there this time with finally having enough pain, I think, to really look at myself and be able to take a look back at the destruction that I left in my wake of years and years of being selfish and self-centered. There for 30 days, and like I said earlier, you're in your bubble. My last day there, and somebody down there calls them God winks. And I started, while I was there, I would tell them, I was like, I'm going to really try the spiritual side. And I prayed every night. And it didn't come easy at first. And I talked to them about that, and they said, just keep doing it. It started getting easier. My conversation started getting better. I was growing that relationship with a higher power that I had never had. I'd never been able to trust. Being able to look back at things he got me through in life started to become clear to me. So my last Sunday there, they had a speaker. 3 guys come down from High Point. And after the meeting, I'm talking to the guy. The guy's like, I was supposed to be down here about 3 years ago. I didn't tell you, my dad passed. That was another spiraling event. He was my sounding board. He passed about 4 years ago. So this is, early, about a year ago. The guy said, I was supposed to come down here about 3 years ago, but the guy died 2 days before, and I felt it on me. I knew exactly right then who that guy was. And I said, who was that? He said, David Kaiser. Sorry, I can say his name now. He's an alcoholic, but he's not with us. He said, David Kaiser? And I was like, that's my dad. And it was a day that I was being promoted there, and I was like, that's my dad here to see me. And little things like those things started happening more. I was dead set there when I went there that I was going to go back to Charlotte. And while I was there, I got taught, and we still am learning, take a little direction. And so I did. I talked to my daughter and said, this is what I'm going to do. I need to get better. And she was good, and my family supported it. So I came here, kept developing my relationship with God. And just like the promises say, good things started to happen. I got out, got a job. And then I got a job back in the golf, which I really loved. And it gave me time to come to these meetings to really be a better spiritual person today than I've ever been. So today I have working on a relationship with my daughter. As Kurt said, these things keep happening. Here again, God's throwing a job just came up. I didn't send my resume out or anything. Close to my daughter. I'm 14 miles from my daughter, as opposed to here in Charlotte. I saw her this morning. I'm able to be a better dad today. And so By working these steps in this program, it's a miracle, and by trusting in God, miracles do happen. And I spent so long not wanting to be my dad, and he had some good sobriety. I'm glad I'm still like my dad today, and I hope I can live the way he did. So I appreciate y'all letting me speak.